people have given me a different meaning on what their take is on it. So I keep hearing completely different stories, and I've noticed with all my work that it continually grows. So I produce the work, and after it's completed, it's sort of half done, and then the story grows from there, and it continues on to grow with everyone's perspectives. So the idea behind this series was it was based on a question, what if, and it's about what if the politicians and so on had been able to see Aboriginal culture or through Aboriginal eyes and understood the culture a little bit more. Would times be different now? Would the gap between Aboriginal Australia and White Australia be a little bit closer? Would communities be a little bit better off if in the earlier days and right up to even the 60s and 70s, if they had understood that culture more? So it's about just seeing from an Aboriginal perspective and understanding that. The technical side of things, I'll run through that very quickly. I don't want to get into sort of what I've done retouching too much, because otherwise it turns into retouching and takes away from the art side of things. So what I've done is I've overlaid, I photographed about 27 Aboriginal models, and I ended up using about 19 because some of the faces wouldn't fit properly. I've purchased all the original photos from the National Library in Canberra and overlaid the faces on top, and then brought different areas of the face through. Originally I was going to do it all with the eyes, but it didn't work for some people. Like if you change some of the eyes, it didn't look like the person anymore. So we ended up rubbing and changing and using different techniques to. So I didn't want to take away from the Prime Minister. You still had to tell that it was the Prime Minister, but I wanted to give him Aboriginal features. So we went away from the eyes. A lot of them are the eyes, but some that we couldn't get right, we've actually used different areas. The first one I did was Bob Hawke, and he was really easy to do because he kind of had sort of those features anyway, where some of them are really, really difficult, like Paul Keating was completely the opposite in his features, so it was very, very difficult to get that to fit in properly, and we had to completely take out areas to get a look, because he just looked like, I just couldn't get it right. So they took really, really, him and Julia Gillard, which has sort of got the same shaped face, took a really, really long time to do, and then others were quite simple to do. But if you're looking at it closely and you walk up and you put your hands across different areas, you'll see different parts of the photos pop out. John Howard, if you basically bring your hand across like that, you see someone completely different to that. And then some have got their face actually divided. A lot of them, if you look really closely, have got eyes like that there. There's a friend of mine I used to get a stool with, which is from there down. And his eye's actually there, but if you chop that off, I mean, that is basically Paul Keating there up. So that is his face, absolutely no changes at all. And all that's been changed.
You've made a very good job of that. You said you spent a lot of time on it. A very good job of it.
Thanks.
You can see.
Yeah, and I did it 8 times, like over about 2 months. So it was really, really difficult to get it to look right. And Julia Gillard was quite difficult. The other thing I've used here is some of the models are women as well. So that has, I did that purposely. And that's also taking a women's perspective on life as well. So you can probably tell on some of them, but this one here and this one here, I've used women to drop that in as well. And there's a few others as well. I go on to the Undiscovered series. I won't talk too much about Undiscovered because it pretty much speaks for itself. The idea come from calling it Undiscovered. So it actually come from the title first, and then I produced the work. My idea behind this was that when white settlers come, they called it a discovery of Australia, and there'd been people living here for thousands of years. So I basically did the opposite, called it Undiscovered, and did a fairly light-hearted look, a role reversal of just putting a same modelers I've used over here. A friend of mine that I used to go to school with, and he came out and modelled for me for the day. And we did all the shots, and then I basically pieced them all together on the computer. And I'll run through some of the processes that I've used. I originally photographed him on the beach, but I wasn't 100% happy. The background was a little bit busy, so I photographed the beach where I live and ended up doing a process that was working in layers, which a lot of these photos are about 4 layers, and they've been built up from there. I've used a couple of different techniques to piece them all together. There's 10 in the series, so I've kept the horizon identical, so if they're hanging in a gallery, that they're all identical to each other, they all line up. I've used red in all the series, some type of a British feeling, which is either the flag or a tall ship or the dress in all the series as well, and we've placed an Australian animal in all the series to give that connection back to Australia. The full series of 10 tells a story. They start with the dress and finish with, I'm going to leave that print open to however people want to see it. Same again, the stories progress since the series has been finished, so it keeps evolving through the story of the work. So I'm going to leave that open to everyone has a different opinion on the last image, but that is the actual last image of the series. I actually don't mind talking about the story of this because it is the actual story, and I like the story, so I'll run through exactly what it means. It's about a Aboriginal girl that sees white settlers for the first time, and the first couple, there's 10 in this series too, and the first couple are a London backdrop. So she's not actually in London, she imagines where the people have come from. It's the first time she's ever seen white people with toolkits pull up. She sees the women's dresses, the hairstyling, all the materialism, and she imagines herself in that situation. As the series goes on, I think about the first 3 images, she's fully clothed, and as the series goes on, she slowly strips and she has some symbols of European settlement, which is through the religion and the type of clothing, and it's pieced together in it's not really supposed to make too much sense from a technical point of view, as in the time frames, because I know that the colours and things like that are based on in a totally different era. I come from a fashion background, so I'm always looking at whatever looks good, and if it makes sense, it doesn't matter as long as it has a meaning to it. So as you go through the series, she sees there's a couple of sort of images in the series where there's a prison behind and things like that, so it sort of says she sees what happens to her people over a period of time, and then this is the last image in the series. It's like a freedom shot, it's her connection back to her land, so she sees what they do to her people over a period of time and decides that she wants to rid herself of all the materialism and find her connection back to her people and back to her land. So this last shot is a freedom shot and her connection back to her people.